I chain smoke and I say fuck a lot. But I accept myself for the way I am. I accept you too. Viewer discretion advised.
In case you missed it, I made a video the other day called Peckerhead Returns about Brian Peck. I'll leave a link. And I couldn't include this in the video because there wasn't enough time. That video was already like 22 minutes. But something about that Pod Meets World podcast that I used didn't seem right to me. They pretty much go on for over an hour making excuses, saying how they were manipulated and even victimized by Brian Peck. But also that Ryder Strong feels bad about talking about it because he doesn't want to ruin Brian Peck's life. And it's interesting because they don't apologize at all to Drake Bell in the podcast. It seems like they care more about hurting Brian Peck than Drake Bell, the victim. You can listen to the whole podcast if you want, but I clipped some more of it here. And I wasn't even going to say anything, but then I watched Alexa Nikolas comment on it. She's a former child actress who's worked on a lot of shows and some movies. And just to name a few, ER, Even Stevens, The King of Queens, Zoolander, Charmed, The Walking Dead, Family Guy, but most notably, Zoe 101. But now she goes and protests places like Nickelodeon, and she also has a YouTube channel called Eat Predators. Anyway, I watched her reaction to it, and I figured, yeah, maybe it is worth covering.
Every episode, we mention the guest stars that you're going to see. We say their name, and we mention the other shows they've been on. And with Season 5 looming close, we know that we'll need to address an actor and behind-the-scenes figure who appeared on the show starting in 1997. And we knew this deserved a more detailed discussion, especially even since we as hosts are still unpacking everything involved. And we know that discourse around this subject has culturally ramped up, with Will and Ryder even being contacted recently for a statement. So we decided to talk about it here on our podcast, where we can dig much deeper than one sentence.
He then asked us to support him and go to court with him, which a lot of us did. And we're sitting in that courtroom on the wrong side of everything, of course, having no idea of this, filled with child actors, to the point where the victim's mother turned and said, look at all the famous people you brought with you, and it doesn't change what you did to my kid. Mm-hmm. And I just sat there wanting to die, where it was like, what the hell am I doing here?
Like,
I mean, there was a lot of us there that were very recognizable, again, to the point where the victim's mom pointed it out. Mm-hmm. And, you know, he had Ryder and I write letters of support to the judge. And these are things we did. And again, we did them because we were then lied to. We weren't told the whole story. But it doesn't change the fact that we did it.
And they're not the only ones that wrote letters in support of Brian Peck. From USA Today, James Marsden, Taryn Killam wrote support letters for Brian Peck amid Drake Bell abuse case. March 15, 2024. Several prominent Hollywood actors wrote letters of support for Brian Peck, the Nickelodeon dialogue coach convicted of child sexual abuse in 2004. A new documentary reveals. The documentary's fourth episode discusses Bell's surprise that Peck still received support in Hollywood after he was convicted. It reveals that before Peck was sentenced in 2004, several famous actors wrote letters of support for him, including James Marsden, 50, who played Cyclops in the X-Men movies, Bryan Singer, and Taryn Killam, 41. He was in a few episodes of The Amanda Show and also an episode of Drake and Josh, among others. The 41 letters of support intended for the judge to take into consideration when determining Peck's sentence were previously sealed. Marsden told the judge that he had known Peck since he was a teenager and wrote, quote, I assure you, what Brian has been through in the last year is the suffering of 100 men, according to the documentary. Killam, meanwhile, wrote, quote, I've seen the effects this situation has had on Brian, and I know for a fact that he regrets any mistakes made. While Alan Thicke offered his, quote, sincere and heartfelt vote of confidence in Brian's future. Actor Ron Melendez, 51, also reportedly wrote that Peck, quote, is a good man. And not surprisingly, in 2006, he ended up in a movie called Outlaw Trail, The Treasure of Butch Cassidy, in which Brian Peck was a producer. And in 2009, in Bitch Slap, another movie which Brian Peck was a producer. When Peck was sentenced in 2004, Marsden was 31, while Killam was 22, Dick was 57 and Melendez was 31. Growing Pains actress Gianna Kearns, 71, said in a statement included in the documentary that her own letter of support for Peck was based on complete misinformation, and knowing what I know now, I never would have written it. In Quiet on Set, Bell alleges that Peck, a dialogue coach on The Amanda Show, subjected him to extensive and brutal sexual abuse. He also describes being shocked when he went to court for Peck's sentencing and found his entire side of the courtroom was full, with supporters noting there were definitely some recognizable faces.
Part of it, just not to cut you off.
No, please. I'm rambling at this point.
No, you're fine. It's a lot. There's a lot to unpack because you knew this one story and now there's all this evidence of another story. And it's, for lack of a better term, it's a mind fuck. You're like, what? Mm-hmm. But I think the big piece that we have to remember, and I know this might be a hard pill to swallow, is that you were victimized in your own way.
I mean, I'm so uncomfortable with doing this episode.
I hate it. I hate it.
And it's because I still feel bad. I still feel like we should not be ruining this man's life more. I still feel that. And I don't, I think there's a lot of layers to that. Like, it just makes me so uncomfortable. Mostly because we're gonna air this episode and a million articles are going to be written. We know that's going to happen. There's going to be variety. There's going to be clickbait articles. And we're not adding any new information to the world. Instead, we're bringing something that's already out there, but it's not in the foreground, right? And it's
we're shining a spotlight.
It's not, okay, but like the fact that this person, a convicted child sex offender, worked on Boy Meets World, is not like even one of the top 100 facts about Boy Meets World in the universe. After this, it's going to be like the thing.
No, it's not going to be a number one fact that Brian Peck worked on Boy Meets World. It's going to become a number one fact that you, sadly, did defend Brian Peck.
Right. It's going to be, it will rise to the top of like one of the most talked about facts about us and our show. And like, okay, so what's wrong with that? I think I have like, I think like pedophilia just lends itself towards to a moral panic. And that I don't love the idea that like we're playing into the sort of conspiracy theories around Hollywood, which are ridiculous and so overblown, I think.
You're concerned about falling into the conspiracy theories of what, Pizzagate? And not concerned about how you fucking sound in this episode?
I don't like the idea that like we are, affecting the cultural memory of Boy Meets World with this.
My God, he's more concerned about this. There it is. There it is. I was waiting for what you guys really sound like there for a second. You're concerned about how it makes Boy Meets World look. What, your actions?
This is like a classic thing. It's, the satanic panic of the 80s. You have like the repressed memories movement, Pizzagate. Like right now, it's like
I knew it was coming. Pizzagate. I knew it was coming. Oh my God, that's what they're worried about.
But this did happen. I agree with you.
Right, but why are we talking about it? Why are we bringing it up now? And that, like, because I watched a lot of people behave horribly during Boy Meets World. Like, I watched grown-ups do awful things. I'm not tarnishing their reputation. I'm not bringing it up. And so that's where I'm like, why, and that's what but then I'm like, well, why am I feeling bad for this person? Why am I, because I'm not friends with this person. I can honestly say this person is, I agree with everything that's been said, manipulative, charming in an awful way. Like I can agree with all those things, but I still feel, and then, like I said, I worry about playing into, I think damaging our industry, which is an industry I love. Like I love Hollywood. I think it's, it's one of the few businesses that's built around art and expression, self-expression. And I think it, it's something I care about.
What? Still no Drake? He almost said he was actually worried about Brian Peck. Kind of. I heard that. Then he was actually got worried about Hollywood. Bro, Hollywood doesn't give a fuck about you. Don't worry. You're not going to affect Hollywood, okay? You don't have that much of an impact. None of us do. Come on? And also, who cares if it did? Hollywood sucks.
Do either of you still feel like the manipulate? I mean, I know you don't feel any sort of sense of like loyalty to him, but there is a little
Ryder's
feeling
on the
of
fence
like,
on that a little bit.
yeah,
I would
there's a
say.
sense
Absolutely.
of feeling like you want to still protect this person.
Hollywood, Pizzagate, Brian Peck. This is the list? You were the one who wrote that letter.
And on Alexa Nikolas's Instagram page, she wrote, "You cared more about Hollywood, Pizzagate, and Boy Meets World than a child that was molested by someone you defended and never apologized to. Welcome to our ad break for our protest." There were a lot of ads in that episode. I'm not going to read it all, but somebody was replying, defending Boy Meets World, and in short wrote, "Again, they didn't do this to the victim. There is one predator here, and it's not the other kid actors on the show. The fact that I have to explain this to you shows you don't get it, and this has never happened to you." To which Drake Bell replied, from Drake Bell, "Will was 27 years old, and Brian told him what he did. Many people turned away and said, no, I won't write a letter, but they did. Will was not manipulated. Brian admitted it to him, and he wrote the letter anyway. Then he worked with me on many, many episodes of Spider-Man years later, and never said a word to me about it. This," meaning their podcast, "this is because they were told their letters are going to be made public. Everyone thought the letters would be sealed forever, and no one would ever see them. This is their publicist telling them how to get ahead of the story." Somebody else replied, "Alexa, Ryder Strong was also a minor at the time this was going on, and when he wrote that letter, and he worked with Peck as a minor as well." To which Drake Bell replied, Drake Bell, "No, he wasn't. Ryder was 24 years old when he wrote the letter, and was told by Brian what he did. He wrote the letter anyway." And I'm recording this right now on March 17, 2024, St. Patrick's Day. Light on Set premieres tonight. And did you know that Brian Peck was pen pals with John Wayne Gacy?
I remember at the time, I think it was about like 2.5 years in, everyone went to Brian's house for a barbecue, and his house was a little off. He had a room that was just dedicated to like vintage toys and comic books, and he'd converted his garage into like a Planet of the Apes shrine. I noticed a painting in the room that stuck out to me because it had nothing to do with Planet of the Apes. It was of a birthday clown holding balloons. And Brian got very excited when I asked him about it. He flipped the thing around, and on the back it said, "To Brian, I hope you enjoy the painting. Best wishes, your friend, John Wayne Gacy."
Gacy was found guilty of committing 33 murders. He was sentenced to 12 death sentences and 21 natural life sentences. After he was sentenced, Gacy was imprisoned at the Menard Correctional Center, where he began to paint. Some of his paintings depicted himself dressed up as Pogo the Clown, and some were shown at a Chicago gallery exhibit. Outraged at his notoriety as a painter, families of some of Gacy's victims publicly purchased and burned his artwork.
It was a self-portrait of serial killer, John Wayne Gacy. At this point, I'm like 14. I didn't know like the details, but I knew like this guy's a serial killer who like killed a lot of young men and boys. My instinct was like, everyone has to see this. And so like all the parents and the kids come into the room, and then Brian presents the painting again. And Brian actually developed a pen pal relationship with John. He kept like this pile of letters and photos from John Wayne Gacy in his nightstand next to his bed. And he like pulls them out and starts showing them to me. Your instinct is to give someone the benefit of the doubt. If you've known them for that long, even in the face of like this really bad sign. It was one of those like classic failures of group psychology.
What makes this even more disturbing, if it can be, is that Brian Peck had a small role as a clown in a show produced by Dan Schneider, Guys Like Us, in 1999. Brian Peck was Mr. Happy Pants the Clown.
Hey kids, it's me, Mr. Happy Pants. Did somebody order a clown?
Man, I forgot we ordered Mr. Happy Pants. You just had to have Mr. Happy Pants.
Maestro, who was that at the door?
Just some clown.
Okay.
We gotta think of a way to pay for all this stuff. We could have a garage sale. We don't have a garage. We could do it in the lobby. Work with me, girl. Go home, Pants!
For some reason, the only copy of this episode I could find in the last 5 minutes, it just went to music. There was no dialogue. Maybe it was because of copyright, or I don't know, but it's still creepy nonetheless. I'll leave all the links in the description below. Fucking stoned.
I got a motherfucking spaceship. Oh, fuck. Cool, I got it.